Hello? Hello? I'm trying to get my lighting working right. I mean, obviously, this lighting is working
It is
perfectly.
It is working.
Yeah. But the rest of the light, it's just not. I don't know why. It's not dark in this room. But looking behind me, you would think that I'm in a cave of some kind. I wish I was in a cave, lived in a cave, Kate, because then I wouldn't have internet and I wouldn't have Netflix and I wouldn't have had to watch Falling for Christmas, starring the unfortunately indomitable Lindsay Lohan. Hey,
you said Schlocktober?
I did.
Please.
Praying for my own Deathcember. It's here. And
I feel
hey,
like there'd be jingle bells in the background when you
we gotta have it. So the deal is that oh, by the way, hey, it's me. I'm Alex Pawlowski, and this is Kate, and this is episode
29 of Get 29 the Flick Out of Here.
Of Get the Flick Out of Here. Spoiler alert: it's gone. It's already left.
And it's gone.
Around the 10-minute mark, it just said, "I'll show myself out," and it knew what it was immediately. It is a terrible Netflix Christmas movie.
That's correct.
Somehow starring Lindsay Lohan.
So before we dive in, here's where I feel like the film failed. I would say in the Lifetime and the Hallmark subgenres of corny, cheesy, terrible Christmas movies, a lot of them turn into being so bad it's good, i.e. The Christmas Wedding Planner that's on Netflix. Like, that one understood. Like, you have to get so bad that it becomes it becomes a comedy when it thinks it's just a romance, because you're laughing at it, not with it. This didn't get to that point. When I referenced The Christmas Wedding Planner, that is a movie where there is a woman who is texting her dead mother and apparently paying her phone bill because it says sent when she sends the texts. And there's a cameo from Joey Fatone.
Maybe they're still on a family plan.
I can only imagine.
A death in the family plan.
Sad, but hysterical.
Yeah.
The other guy's a PI. Joey Fatone has a cameo, and he's not in the same room as the other actors for one of the scenes. Like, it's hilariously bad. This never gets there. This never fully accomplishes that. It's a little bit too sincere, but bad. And so, whereas the other ones feel like I'm getting a value out of it because it's hysterical to laugh at, I couldn't do that here. I was just not entertained.
Right.
It was not very good.
The other thing about it, Kate, and I mentioned this to you before we went on the air, is that this is an eminently forgettable movie.
It's bad. Yeah, it's
just literally forgettable. Like, it's the only thing that makes it different from the rest of the schlock that Netflix has on its programming around this time of year, is that Lindsay Lohan is in it for some reason, and they don't cross the threshold from bad to so bad it's good sometimes.
Correct.
They never do that. So, but it could be literally anybody, because you could put anybody in this thing. It doesn't there aren't, as far as I can tell, a lot of like, hey, inside joke. Nobody says, nobody pulls up to Lindsay Lohan and says, "Get in, bitch, we're going shopping." Like,
yeah, there's no
you could have fun stuff.
References or
Herbie. There's a point where obviously there's a precocious little girl in it because it has to be, because it's a Christmas movie, so there has to be one. At no point does Lindsay Lohan walk in on her hiding behind something with a water gun or something, or like pillows, like in a little net over the place where her dad's gonna walk, and say, "What are you doing?" "Oh, yeah, I set up a booby trap for my dad. I call it a parent trap." And everyone looks at the camera, like you, as I always say, lean into it.
Yes.
Just lean into how terrible everything is because it makes it more fun. But they said, we don't like fun.
No.
We want you watching this to have zero fun. So when I say eminently forgettable, it is forgettable. And I watched it 2 weeks ago because we were like, hey, let's get ahead of the game on our Christmas movie binge, and we'll watch it and then we'll record. And forgetting it was Thanksgiving, and we were like,
Right.
oh, yeah,
Not so much.
Yeah. No. So,
which I know you're probably devastated because you don't have the opportunity to watch another one of like this type of movie. So I'm sorry you're going to miss out on that experience.
Right. No, it's true. I really wish I had that, but I don't. So, Lindsay Lohan is Paris Hilton, as far as I can tell. The character is, she is the daughter of a hotel magnate, and she does nothing. She adds no value to the world whatsoever.
But so is in the headlines.
Right. Yeah. Because she's the daughter of a billionaire.
Right.
Just the exact message you want to get across on Christmas, where it's about the spirit of giving.
And on top of that, like right after, like Paris Hilton kind of came out with a documentary about like the abuse that she dealt with as a teenager, like just poking, kind of just needling her a little bit. It's a really nice thing to do.
It's a good thing to do. Again, Kate, I've forgotten so much of this. I know this. Her dad is, oh God, what the hell is what is their last name? It's a wonderful, like, waspy, just like, her name is Sierra because her dad
is it Belmont?
Belmont. There you go.
Belmont is his name.
Belmont. Beauregard Belmont. I'm assuming they also own the Belmont Stakes, the horse race.
Of course.
They must own that as well, because apparently he got rich off of just owning a bunch of mega ski resorts. This one is, well, it's not in the tiny town of wherever the hell they made up a dumb name for a town in Colorado, which is supposed to be this small, falling apart little town, but every time they go out into it, it's idyllic and perfect and updated and modern. But oh no, the whole town's falling apart, including this one guy's mini ski resort. Anyway, Jack Wagner plays Beauregard Belmont. Jack Wagner was on General Hospital. I know this because my mother watched General Hospital. And so I was like, hey, is that, oh, he did not age well. But you know, it was back in the 80s that she was watching it. So yeah, I did not know we were going to get a lot of that. There's a guy who desperately wants funding to keep his small ski resort open. And the only way apparently he can think of to get funding for that is to ask his competitor for money. He has a whole like PowerPoint about it, like, hey, you know, most people who learn to ski at small resorts like mine, and then if they like it, then they go and spend all the money at your mega resort. You know, it's like one of those places where like the smallest room in the place costs $1,500 a night, and yet there are thousands of rooms in the resort, and they're all full. It's one of those places. This is where Paris Hilton, Lindsay Lohan, lives, and she has a team of people who wake her up in the morning and put her in ridiculous outfits. And anyway, so this guy shows up and he says, "Hey, Mr. Beauregard, my name is Alex. Can't remember my name." And whatever his name was,
Jack.
Jake.
His name was
it
Jack.
Jake? Jack? Jake?
I thought it was
It's Jake.
Jack.
Is it Jack? It's
We're gonna
Jake.
find out.
This is great. This shows how much we love this movie.
I think it. Well, because the good stuff, like Jake Russell is that guy's name.
Jake Russell.
I also watched this with my sister the day after Thanksgiving, all cozy in bed, so I didn't take like salient notes. But so yeah, like Jake Russell has this plan basically that says like if you foster the little guy, they're the ones that go on to the big guy stuff. And
you know who's famous
Belmont doesn't have time for that.
Do you know who's famous for subscribing to if you foster the little guy business plans? Billionaires. They love them. Look at all those billionaires fostering the little guy all over the place. Billionaires love fostering. They love it. That's why Daddy Warbucks did it, when he fostered Little Orphan Annie.
But like we do find out that it's kind of like it is kind of a last resort, right? Like we find out in a little bit that things are like hard at the end for Jake Jack, which is now his name.
Because Jake Russell, you know what he is? You know, he's perfect. He's a Jake Russell Terrier. That's what he is.
He is a Jake Russell Terrier.
He is.
He's also not a good guy, which we'll get into. But he is supposed to be like the good guy in this movie, and he's just not a good dude.
He has a fantastic late 90s Jake Vanderbeek haircut. Middle part just flopping on the sides, and a very round face. He's supposed to be incredibly non-threatening, and they've done a very good job of casting that. Because anyway, the way he tries to impress Beauregard Belmont enough so that Beauregard Belmont will foster the little guy is to have a ski race with him down the slopes. And then he loses on purpose. And Beauregard Belmont could have said, you know what? Your idea is very intriguing to me, but I can't respect a man who lets another man win. But instead he goes, classy move, letting me win. Nice work. Which, of course, actually is how billionaires think, because that's basically what they've been let win their entire lives. So he just says, no, I'm not going to give you that money. He could also say everybody would be driven to my ski resort, which is a mile down the road from your tiny little one. It's not really a ski resort, by the way. Jake's it's a bed and breakfast. It's not a ski resort. Jake doesn't have a ski resort. I don't know what he's thinking about getting. Like, just anyway. We meet Lindsay Lohan's boyfriend, Tad.
Yes.
Tad. He's got another stupid name. His last name is stupid, but he's an influencer. That's his job.
Fairchild.
Thaddeus Q. I'm sure his middle name is Quincent. Thaddeus Quincent Fairchild. He is British. And he's got porcelain alabaster skin, and he is an influencer. That's all he does. And boy, does this movie think that alone is comedy. Like, they just mine it for like, can you believe this guy? He's an influencer. Everybody laugh for an hour and a half. It's just they do so little to try and make it like, okay, yes, we understand influencers exist. And there's no and. I mean, he himself is a ridiculous character, but they think that just because we made him an influencer, that's the end. That's the end of it.
He was also the only actor that understood the assignment, though, because he was a caricature of a human being.
Right.
And that's what this is supposed to be.
Sure.
So I appreciated that about him. But yeah, that's all he is.
Yes.
And Jack Russell Terrier is not.
No.
He's like the opposite of that. See, and Mr. Belmont, sir, is not a fan of this Tad.
No. 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 Perhaps because he can see the end of the movie where Tad winds up with a man at the end of the thing. Maybe he was like, I don't think he's good. I don't think he's right for you. I think, but anyway. So he is the only actor who understood the assignment, and therefore he feels incredibly out of place in this movie.
Yes. Yeah.
If there was like if it was half and half, maybe, but he's the only one. So it just, every time he shows up, I'm like, this guy dropped out of another dimension and landed here. Jake Russell Terrier is told no by Beauregard Beaumont, but here is this hot blonde whose entire job at my resort, for which I'm sure she gets paid $12 an hour, is to walk around in a skimpy outfit pushing a hot chocolate cart. So it's on the house, whatever hot chocolate you like. And so he takes one and is on the phone with nobody. We've never found out who he's on the phone with. It's definitely not his family, or it's a business partner that we never
Hello,
see.
Business? Hello, business. Do you have the documents to send over? We need to merge the things. I'll meet you in conference room B. That's what that is. That is that entire conversation.
Exactly. Very good.
So we do also get a Lindsay Lohan montage, like where it's her getting ready, like you said.
Yeah.
And is it here or later that we find out that her dad wants to make her vice president of Atmosphere?
No, right. That's she says it to somebody. Maybe it's Tad. Maybe it's Terry, the head get her dressed person. But she doesn't want to be vice president of Atmosphere because that's just a title he made up so he can protect me. And like, Lindsay, you are obviously nearing 40 years old. I know the character you're playing is 28, but you're obviously nearing 40. You have been living off of your father's dime for nearly 4 decades. Just keep doing that by taking the job. Like, the idea of, I don't want a job where I do nothing. You already have a job where you do nothing. It's called Billionaire's Daughter. They're just changing the title. Like, it'd be one thing if like, oh, I've always wanted to go out and do this. If she was much younger and she was like 19, 20 and had been having 2 gap years between high school and college and wants to go and like she wants to be a creative writing instructor or like anything that require, like she has a soul in her, but she doesn't. She spent 40 years, 43, 44 years, with her father footing the bill. By the way, we find out her mother died when she was 5, and she either doesn't remember it or has very, very, very specific, lucid memories about everything about her mother. Depends on what the script wants from her at any one time. But so it's just been her and her dad for her entire life.
So the other thing is like, and the overarching problem kind of with the whole movie is we never find out who she is. And the whole, spoiler alert, the crux of it is like, she's supposed to have forgotten who she is, but we don't find out really anything about who she was beforehand, other than the fact that she has a dead mom. Like you could do a fun thing where someone is rejecting that title and has never had a title because they want to find something about themselves. But there's no context for anything else that she's like interested in any way,
like
shape, or form.
If she wanted to do other things, other real specific things with her life.
Single thing.
Then her turning down the vice president of atmosphere job from her father, from which she would be paid a salary equal to however much her allowance has been since she's been alive. If she had an alternative, then maybe it would make sense. But because she doesn't, it doesn't. And here's the thing. As you said, like, listen, you and I could write this movie 1,000 times better than this movie did. Because right there, you have this awesome thing where she says, for this whole time when I've had the amnesia, I didn't know who I was. But now that I remember that I am Sierra, I realize that I've never known who I am until now. I am your housekeeper / wife, Jake. That's okay. So anyway, so a major plot development happens where Jake Russell Terrier is walking through the lobby and misses a luggage cart and does a little spin move and splats open hot cocoa first into the chest of Lindsay Lohan, who's wearing a full pantsuit thing.
Fabulous.
Yeah, fabulous. She's wearing a big poofy hot pink hat and oversized sunglasses. And Jake Russell looks directly into her face for 15 seconds. And an hour later, can't remember having met her. So I'm not really sure who has the brain damage / memory loss here. Is it the girl who fell down a mountain and landed headfirst into a tree trunk? Or is it Jake Russell Terrier, who just is a goldfish?
And not only is she a celebrity, if you want to give me like I don't pay attention to that stuff, I would have known whatever. It's the daughter of the person you made a business pitch to.
Yeah. So in doing your research about this guy, you would have Googled it, and I think one of the first things that would have come up about the Belmont
the headline grabber
hotels is all like, just Google it, and all the news things that come up are Sierra Belmont seen here with this celebrity, because that's what would come up in the Google search. But he has no idea who
if he
is.
did Google it, he doesn't deserve the money for his stupid bed of breakfast.
Anyway, Tad's like, you've done enough, leave. And so he does. He goes back to his sad little resort where there's one horse that carries 2 people at a time in a carriage in a sleigh, and that's his resort. Apparently there is a ski run at his resort that only exists when the movie needs it to, because it actually isn't at the location they filmed the resort at. They had to drive an hour into the mountains to film it. So whatever. Anyway, out in the middle of nowhere, Tad and Lindsay Lohan and Sierra have gone to do a photo shoot so they can put it on Instagram so he can get more likes. And but they don't know how to unhook the snowmobile from the trailer, so he just says, "Unhook!" Like it's voice command activated. And they somehow cut away and they come back, and I don't know how he's gotten it unhooked, but he did. And they went up to this very top thing. There's a guy I follow on Instagram who's a trail runner who told that he geotagged
it.
And so they're up there, and he chooses to be up there to propose to her, but the ring is comically too big for her finger, and he says, we'll get it resized. But then she starts to slide down the mountain the opposite way behind her, and he reaches up to grab her and pulls the ring off her finger, and she slides back the other way. And he goes, no, to the heavens in a very, over outlandish way, which I guess he was standing on ice, because his half of the mountain breaks away underneath him, and he falls. Unfortunately, not to his death. He just falls. And if he had died in the fall, the rest of the movie would be so much better. Because every time they recheck in with him, they remind you there's a different movie that this guy is in, and it might be an okay film if everybody else was in it. But he's, I don't think, very good. He's just really he just is over the top. You know what I mean? Like he can be over the top and good. He's just over the top, which can be fun to watch. But Lindsay Lohan skids down the end and her half of the mountain, and she's falling face forward on her face, sliding down the mountain, and lands with the crown of her head at, I don't know, 120, 130 miles an hour directly into a tree. So she's dead, but she's not, because this is a movie. They could have had any other thing could have happened to her to give her this amnesia, but whatever. So Jake Russell Terrier just happens to be driving a couple through the on the sleigh past this spot and sees a hot pink coat laying in the ground and goes, "Hold on, everybody, I'm gonna go check this out." And he goes over there and he's like, "Oh my God, not Miss Belmont, the woman that I know a lot about because I Googled your father, but oh no, a random skier, not somebody that I met by staring face to face with an hour ago. Nope, different person." But anyway, he gets on the walkie-talkie to nobody. Like he's like, just we don't find there's the staff that he has at that place is his mother-in-law and his daughter, and now Lindsay Lohan. There's like one other guy who I guess works part-time, and Santa Claus. Santa Claus works there. I don't know why Santa Claus works there, but he does. This friggin' movie. But he's like, "Hey, we got a 172. Send out the helicopter to airlift us because he's got a helicopter." So I don't know.
He has a helicopter, but the resort isn't doing well.
It's not his helicopter. I think he says get the sheriff to to airlift somebody. So, but I did think it was kind of funny. He was like, "Get the helicopter
to the chopper."
Shout
out to the people on the sled who were like, "Hey, there's a body over there, by the way."
Yeah, it's good. Anyway, we get now. Before she left with Tad, she told her glam squad not to disturb her. "I will let you know the next time I want to see you." So that's why she can be missing for several days and no one actually come looking for her. Tad's phone dies, so he's not able to. There was no service anyway, but he can't, like, nobody can find him. Beauregard Belmont flew back to London or New York or something, and he won't be back for several days, until Christmas Eve. So no one is looking for her, handy dandy. And no one is looking for Tad because who cares about influencers, I guess. He doesn't have a family who would miss him or care if he dies. So she wakes up in the hospital and she doesn't remember who she is. However, she remembers she's a bitch because she's awful to everyone in a really entitled way. And I don't know. Maybe that's just like, I'd have to like look up amnesiacs, because her personality is super entitled, right? That's who she is, because that's who she's been her whole life. But do you remember to be an asshole to everybody if you don't remember your own name? Or is it just because like that's how you've always treated people? Is there selective amnesia? Because she doesn't remember her name or where she comes from or anybody who she knows or why she's even there. But she remembers to be a horrible bitch to the nurse and everybody who's working with her.
She doesn't seem like panicked.
No.
I guess that was before she kind of realized fully what happened. But she's way more concerned with being mean to people in the hospital than she is about like her own medical status.
Right. The sheriff is like, "Well, I have no idea who you are. We fingerprinted it, but that didn't come back. But that just means she's never been arrested or even had a job." Which is true of her. So there's
I
no fingerprints don't work.
do appreciate that they had attempts to justify things. Like, Dad was out of town. They told the hotel staff not to look for her. Ted's phone died. She doesn't have a job, so it wouldn't show up. Like, there were at least attempts for things.
Right.
Except for the fact that it's weird she would have no ID on her.
Well, she didn't have any pockets because because of the lines of the for the photo shoot.
But in the car,
she doesn't need any, but it's in the car. The car is on the top of the mountain somewhere. So, the thing of it is that I would say this: it's fine if Jake Russell Terrier doesn't follow celebrity news. It's odder that nobody in the town does, because somebody would be like, "You see her at Belmont? What are you doing here? Oh my God, can I get a photo with you? I follow you on Instagram. You have literally 8 million followers. One of them is me. What are you doing here? Is there cameras around? Are you filming something for your reality show that you do that everyone hates?" Like,
that's not a single. Nobody thought to put anything out to a news station. No point was there any. I would say at no point did they put forward any offense into trying to figure out who this woman was. Because
all we can do, said the sheriff, is wait for someone for a missing persons report.
The only thing you could do. She skied down the mountain. So hypothetically, there would be a vehicle at the top of the mountain. We see people go through the mountain. Nobody thought to check the car or for a car.
No.
Not very good.
No. By the way, Tad is almost frozen to death and then finds an ice fishing hut and finds a guy named Ralph. And
we'll get to Ralph, my hero.
He hangs out with Ralph for a while in the fishing hut. And then the next morning, Ralph tries his truck and the battery is dead. But he's not at all concerned by this. Ralph just says, "Oh, it's okay. We'll just have to hoof it from here. It's only a 4-day walk." And you drove out here with all of your shit in your truck. So were you prepared to have to walk back? Apparently you were, because you're survival man, Ralph. But Tad, of course, is not prepared until Ralph gives him snowshoes. And then he's fine.
He's fine.
So dumb.
When I say Tad understood justice for Tad, because Tad probably this is how things went. Ready? His agent calls him and is like, "You're going to be in a movie with Lindsay Lohan," and he's like, "Oh my God, that's amazing!" And they're like, "It's a Christmas movie on Netflix," and he's like, "Let me put on my overacting gear. That's what this movie is." He gets it. You're an influencer. Oh my God. Okay. This is going to be cheeseballs the entire time. Not knowing that there were people that were attempting to not do that. His relationship with Ralph, as you said, is a different movie. Completely unnecessary. But I do like that, skipping ahead a little. They get to the police department and the police are like, "Oh, it's Ralph again." That made it feel a little more "Oh, I know the way around here." Felt kind of a little better. But back here at the hospital where Lindsay Lohan is being a bitch, maybe my favorite part of the movie is she has two options. Go back to an inn or stay and get medical attention that she probably needs as somebody who doesn't remember who she is unsafe.
And who must have a massive concussion. It is a miracle she does not have a horrible fractured skull or a compressed spine, considering the way that she plummeted down the mountain headfirst into a tree.
Not a bruise, not a scrape, not a single other broken bone. 120 miles into a tree. A miracle. So they, of course, release her to the care of Jake Russell Terrier.
Well,
who is a stranger that they're like, "You don't know who you are." This guy's a stranger, but he seems neat and is cool in the community. Ah.
Everyone likes Jake. There's no chance he's secretly a serial killer. So
I have
yes,
no idea why anybody likes Jake, but we'll get into that.
yep, everyone likes Jake, and he well, they like Jake because they feel sorry for him because his wife died. Because it's a Christmas movie, so he's a widower with a little girl who is either so happy you question whether or not she understands the nature of death, or just horribly mind-bendingly depressed about the death of her mother 2 years ago. There's no in the middle, but she is as precocious as possible. Also, there is a I don't listen, I'm not the kind of guy to normally do this. There is a weird obsession, not obsession, but like a predominance of interracial couples in this very tiny town in the mountains of Colorado. And I was like, all right, cool, good for you. But it does feel like you're making a statement when you do that. Not the statement you think you're making, but you're making a statement.
It was a lot because there was some really good things. Like I felt like on the representation side, like I loved that the doctor was a Black woman. I thought that was cool. Like,
yeah,
Black and a female and a doctor. But the grandmother, abuela, and the daughter, and then Jake, it just felt like they were going so far out of their way. Like when you are like, it is, hi, we intentionally casted diversity. It's like, well, if you're kind of patting yourself on the back the entire movie, it defeats the whole point a little bit. So there was like some good integrations of that. Tad certainly isn't a white guy, which a lot of influencers are. So that was nice. But there was definitely like and we don't find out anything about like their Hispanic cultural integrations into the movie in any way, shape, or form. Just abuela and
right,
and a daughter that has zero traits that Jake has.
Right. I mean, I would like to know. I mean, I guess maybe I'm only assuming this because I grew up in a very small town in Oregon, but not in Colorado. But the demographics of that town were not like this. I will just say that the mayor of this town and the duly elected sheriff, both Black men, it feels like they were like, well, let's take the racial makeup of Los Angeles and transport it to this very, again, they keep mentioning how small the town is. However, they have a giant town square with high-rise condos on either side of it. But they keep talking about how tiny the town is. So tiny. It's something like Silver Springs or something. No, it's a snowy thing. The name of the town is like a Christmas themed town. It's like Snowy Springs or something. It's so weird. You get the sense that what?
Oh, my sister's favorite part of the small town was in a scene later where they're at the very large center square that you were talking about, and she was like, "Man, it is just not at all on a soundstage, huh?" Like they definitely did not CGI her breath at all.
No. There's also a weird point where the the mayor, for their big tree lighting ceremony they're going to do at this point. This is much later. We're doing this whole thing out of order. But he's like, Jake is there with Abuela and whatever the kid's name is. I forget her name, his little daughter. And they're all standing there and they're watching the thing. And we see like a lot of shots of the little daughter watching this whole thing. And then the mayor says, you little girl, come on up here and help me throw the switch to light the tree. And he called up a different little girl. And it was so odd because the movie is about this family and this little girl who loves Christmas more than anything. And he picked up another
mom,
random
I would have
child.
chosen you, kid.
It was just so weird. Like they just randomly picked a different little ethnically ambiguous little girl who could come up there and throw the switch. They have both little girls have the same hair. It was just so like, I don't like. Did you mean to put like? Was this actor brought in for one scene to be the mayor and was never actually introduced to the little girls? There was one extra and one and he said, "Okay, point in the little girl in the front row. You're going to bring her up." And so he did, but he pointed to the extra, and the extra was like, "This is my big break." And she runs up there, and they were like, "Well, we can only afford to film one take of every scene."
That's it.
So, because Lindsay Lohan's salary was just so much, so we're not going to redo this. We're just going to have the extra because that little girl doesn't appear in any other scene. She's not important. Speaking of weird cameos, Santa Claus is in this movie.
Sure is.
He runs a stall at the farmer's market, and he's obviously Santa Claus. He's a heavy-set white guy with a beard who winks at everything with there's little twinkles in his eye.
Yeah, but the note.
The note.
Remember? Yeah, he's there for Christmas magic and only Christmas magic. The little girl writes and puts on the tree. We'll get there, but we have to go back to the fact that instead of staying in the hospital, Lindsay Lohan is now released to the care of Jake Russell Terrier.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
What happens next is egregious. They say, girl who has no memory, if you do things that you would do on an everyday basis, it might jog your memory.
Mm-hmm.
But here's the thing, Alex. She was a socialite. She doesn't know how to do anything. She doesn't even get ready herself in the morning. And Jake says, the good guy in the movie says, girl who has no sense of self, that is staying with me instead of in the hospital, who is terrible to hospital staff. Get to work. This is the good guy. She goes to put a fitted sheet on her bed. She can't do it. She's never done it before, Alex. Nobody can put a fitted sheet on their bed the first time around, though. So that's a lie.
I still struggle with it.
It's the worst. She goes to try and do some laundry. And darn it, because if you don't know who you are, especially if you're a woman in one of these movies, you're just so clumsy that she knocks the detergent into the washer, which is eventually going to overspill. There's a couple of things like that where she's just trying to do all these ordinary things and can't. I can't stress enough. Her brain function is severely compromised. If you have a sincere concussion, you're not supposed to be like walking around and stuff. And I just felt like she's not getting paid for this. I don't know. Seems like a pretty shitty manipulative thing to do, Jake, good guy in the movie. And she breaks the washing machine because she accidentally put the detergent in it. And he like yells at her.
Well, like this is all he needs right now. The whole thing's the whole operation's gonna collapse right in front of him. This is the last time they can keep the resort open. By the way, I don't know if you noticed this. This resort has been in his ex-wife's, his dead wife's family for generations. Okay. For generations. So that means that prior to any of this, he did not like come up in the whole, like, it wasn't like his family's place. It was his dead wife's family's place. So if it's his, and it's like his great grandfather opened it up, and he spent all of his time here, working here, trying to make he learned how to ski here, all this kind of stuff. His attachment to this place would make more sense. And also him like realizing, like feeling like he ruined his whole family legacy by letting this thing fall apart and be closed down would be one thing. But no, it's his dead wife's family's legacy. But she had no interest in running this thing. Wasn't she always, she was a doctor or something? Like she would try to be a doctor. So like she wasn't actually trying to run the family business. No. We have no idea when her father died. Could be before she ever met Jake. So was it like her mother, who seems to really not have a good head on her shoulders? She's kind of not all there. She's a very sweet old lady, but certainly can't run things. But she also has a very thick accent. So
Yes.
they've been running this place in Colorado for generations, but it is all of this makes no sense. I will only defend Jake for this because the movie tells you the most important thing in the entire film is that this little resort stays open. And he had,
Okay.
and he cannot afford to pay anyone to be in the housekeeping staff. And she is like willing. She's like, well, you could try making a bed. Okay, I will be your housekeeping staff, she says. And he's like, great, that's going to help me out. It is absurd.
But like, you don't,
but I don't
get
think
to
it's
get
malicious.
mad. You don't get
sure.
to get mad that somebody who can't remember who they are screwed up
Right.
your laundry situation and yell at them.
Mhm.
And then she goes outside to talk to the emotional support horse that's there,
Right.
Balthazar.
And right. And she goes outside to talk to the emotional support horse. Okay. She leaves him there to clean up a giant mess of suds all over the floor in the laundry room.
But yeah, because he yelled at her.
No, right. No. This is, but I'm trying to like where he is.
Physically where
then
he
she
is.
goes outside to talk to the emotional support horse, Balthazar. We've never seen her talk to the horse before or have any relationship with horses. She just has to, hey Balthazar, how you doing? I really don't know if I don't know if this Christmas is gonna work out for me. And when she's done, she walks away, and then we see that Jake was in the barn around the corner the whole time, eavesdropping on her conversation with the horse. And my question is, how did he get there before she did? Because he was still cleaning up the suds.
Alex, you could have
editing is so bad.
You could have made it so that he came out to apologize and overheard her talking to the horse.
Yeah.
And then been like, oh shit, I was kind of a dick. Like,
no.
So bad. And then, isn't this where she falls down again? She falls two more times in this movie. She slips on like the ice on the stairs, and they have like this moment, and I'm like, you should probably go back to the hospital. She fell down again.
And then she
maybe make sure
her how
that's
to
the
ski.
one thing that.
And then
Yeah, that was a great idea.
Totally romantic. And they fell down again, but it's totally fine. You've had a massive brain injury. You should fall down a lot. Let's make sure that happens.
Fall down multiple more times in this movie. You should take the risk of learning to ski. And I'm gonna yell at you because you burned the eggs when you were trying to make that. Like, it's just so insane. And then
he does teach her how to make pancakes. He's very patient with her when she can't make a pancake, but not at all when she overflows the washing machine.
It's so because we kind of after this get like into the montage situation, which is hilarious because hardly any time has passed. Like, we get like they're falling in love doing Christmassy. I guess when they go to the town square for the Christmas celebration is when that all starts, because he buys her a snow globe or whatever.
And they almost kiss, and he says, "We shouldn't. You might be with somebody," which is actually a smart thing to do, because she could be married for all we know. Like, who knows? But the idea of
you don't even know her name. So
but the name that she is given by the daughter is Sarah, which is close enough to Sierra that later somebody says to her, "Sierra, it's you." She goes, "Sierra, I know that name. People have been calling you Sarah this whole time. If the name that you hear, Sierra, can trigger you knowing who you are again, every one point somebody adds a little extra E in the Sierra. Hey Sierra, how you doing, Sierra?" And it wouldn't go, "Oh my God!" There's zero reason that. And here's the thing. The most manipulative thing about this is the little girl who also lost her mom when she was 5. Because that's when Lindsay Lohan lost her mom. So they have something to bond over. And all I want is for my dad to find love on Christmas. That's why I wrote that letter to Santa, and it blew off the tree, and everyone's like, well, that's where letters go when they get put on trees. They
Santa
blow away.
No. You have it all wrong. Okay, so let's close the gap here. Balthazar, the support horse scene. We go to the town square after because Jake realizes, oh, maybe I shouldn't be a piece of shit to somebody who has amnesia, and put them to work. But they go to the town square. We get the extra lighting the tree for no reason. They're in the town square. Little girl and grandma go off to put a wish on the town Christmas tree, and Santa's right there. So she writes the note and puts it on the tree, and then Santa's Christmas magic does a little.
He lays
cocaine.
a finger on the side of his nose. Yeah.
And so it's like, that wish is going to be the one that comes true. And while that's happening, Lindsay Lohan and Jake Russell Terrier are just shopping in the Christmas village, and she picks up a snow globe, which is something she has a memory with her mom over, and Jake buys it for her, which is enough to fall in love with him. And I can't emphasize enough, we get this falling in love montage. It's over the course of like 2 days, and it just feels pretty predatory to like be hitting on someone who doesn't know who they are, to me.
Right.
like she has no sense of self. Her brain is literally injured, but like she's cute. So
she cute. Yes, that's very true. I wanted to point out with the snow globe thing. Not only is it this connection that she has with her mom, but wait, she doesn't remember her mom, but wait, she does, depending on what scene that she's in. But also I love that like her love language is being given things that she doesn't actually deserve. So because that's if her personality is still there. Well, she doesn't know who she is, but she remembers enough to know that she should be a bitch to all service workers, including nurses. Then she also remembers enough to know that if a man gives me something, that means I'm supposed to like him. Yeah. There you go.
But yeah, so we get this very emotional scene with this little girl and Lindsay, and they're bonding over the dead mom, and there's stuffed animals on the bed, and she's going through the names of all the stuffed animals because the little girl's like, hey, what's your name? And she's like, I don't know. And they're going through the names of the stuffed animals, and one of them's named Sarah, and she's like, I like that name. That's the name I'll have as I hang out here, sort of work here, and kind of flirt with your dad.
I live here now. There's no ticking clock. There's no concept of like if I stay here, somebody could find me tomorrow, or I could just could be my new life.
They never contact like she is living there, and they make absolutely no effort to figure out who it is. They're just concerned about saving the inn.
It's a very small town with a huge town square and high-rise condos, but it's a very small town, minuscule town. So they don't have a news station there, but you could get like, hey, there's this girl who plummeted down a mountainside and nobody knows who she is. Somebody from Denver would send a crew out there to interview her. And as soon as that happens, everyone knows that Sierra Belmont is work. It's just so dumb. There's also the very manipulative scene of Jake Russell Terrier keeps the tree topper Angel in the desk in his office, and he's not ready to put it on the tree because it's the one that he bought with his now dead wife. It does feel like, yeah, it's been so long since she almost 8 months now that she's like, it doesn't, there's no concept of like when she died or none of that. Like it's very odd. Abuela also falls in love with Lindsay, thinks she's so great. Anyway.
And guess what, Alex? She learns how to do the laundry and how to make beds.
And she loves it so much that
in the morning.
She's fully domesticated, because what a woman really wants is to be a servant.
Of course. Chores.
Yeah.
Love chores.
That's the only thing that women like is doing chores.
And you know she loves them because she did them, still doesn't remember who she is. But like the whole purpose of her doing them was
it is her idea, and this is the climax of the film. It is her idea because Jake refuses to ask for charity again for an inn he married into. Not 30 years ago. I would say at max 10 years ago, he married into this inn that his wife didn't actually even want to run anymore because she wanted to do other things. So he refuses to ask for charity to keep this place afloat. So she does for him. She like puts out flyers for like a please come to this big Christmas party on Christmas Eve, and donations accepted. And everyone comes in the entire town, and they all give him hundreds of dollars to keep the thing afloat. And that's when
landmarked as a historical.
Right. Like, yeah. Oh, that's right. Yes. It's a historical landmark, which means they can't tear it down. That's it for nope. Nobody can do it. So
I've done that a while ago, Jakey.
Then the sheriff shows up with Tad. And they're like, hey, we talked to this guy. He says the missing girl is you're Sierra. All right.
Okay,
party's over, everybody. Go home.
You're fast forwarding again. A few very important things happen. One, Abuela buys her a sexy red dress.
Yep. Can't have a party.
Gift to get.
Sexy red.
Well, because she had nothing to wear to this fancy event.
Right.
It's weird when an old woman who you don't really know buys you a sexy red dress. That's just weird.
It's true.
2, Tad is making his way through the mountains with Ralph. And 3, Dad returns back to Fancy Hotel.
Right.
And I actually like that they did this. All of her get her readiers. We're like, well, we haven't seen her, but she asked us to leave her alone. And her dad was like, for 2 days? At no point did you check it? Like, Dad being proportionately alarmed, I think, was a good thing to see see there. But Tad and good old Ralph are making their way through the mountains, and the cops, who are at least out looking for people, like doing scans of the mountain, are like, well, it's crazy old Ralph. And him and Tad get taken into the station. Tad is relieved. He's in tears. He is like, let Ralph go. Without that man, I'd be dead, which I appreciated the over-the-topness. And then they go to find Sarah Sierra at the inn, and the dad shows up at the same time at this fancy party. But we did get the classic one of these movie scenes of, when we wanted to have our wedding and couldn't afford it, Jake didn't take a dime to let us have it.
Yes.
Here. Like several ones of those that all come up and give the check individually, which is someone who can't accept charity, I'm sure was great for him.
Yeah.
Here's an individual statement and a check that I handed you.
Anyway, so Sierra finds out that she's Sierra and that she's engaged to Tad, and just goes back to the giant hotel on the hill, and Jake is left there sad and depressed. And
this is amazing because nobody asks a single question. So they say Sierra, and she starts to remember everything about who she was. And then they just leave for the hotel. They don't talk to Jake. They don't talk to anybody at the hospital. They don't ask a single question. They're just like, let's go home. They're not like, should we have a follow-up appointment? They pluck her from the party before anybody can even say goodbye. The people that saved her life, kind of.
Yeah.
They're like, thanks. And they just pluck her from the environment that she was in, and they take her to the car. They don't even get her luggage, Alex. They don't even get they just exit the party. And again, just the lack of concern for her actual well-being as someone who has amnesia and probably several other brain conditions. Incredible stuff. So they just go back to the fancy hotel. She finds out that she was engaged. And then has all of the character development that should have been happening in this movie in about one scene.
Yeah, sure. Because she normally she needs to be woken up by her glam squad, and then they sit her in a chair, get her glammed, put crazy outfits on her while someone else like cleans her room. But when they show up, she's already awake and having made her bed, and she doesn't want to wait. She doesn't want to wear the crazy outfits. She just wants to wear something sensible. So
she's in like jeans and a flannel and making her own bed.
Yeah, she's a completely different person now. So they have a press conference with Tad about the wedding.
She gives mass publicity to the inn too. She's like, the people at this place took care of me. So now he's got donations as landmark, and they're sold out. So that's good.
We're sold out for today, this weekend, forever.
No, I think they say for a couple months, or like I think because the grandmother's the one taking the reservations.
The grandmother's
like, we're out for the rest of the year or whatever.
No, she just calls Jake and says, Jake, reservations have been coming in. We're sold out, and that's it. She doesn't say for how long.
I thought she said,
"Oh, that just says funnier. We're sold out.
We're sold out."
Like it's a concert. Like no, you have to get these things forever. Like
it kind of explains.
And ever. Yeah.
I'm starting to learn why the end is in trouble. He does no research when he's proposing investments. The grandma just thinks you have to sell out once and that's it. Like they're terrible business people. But the reason the grandmother has to call Jake is on his way to the big hotel. So
because the daughter tells him he has to go there.
Yeah, he's like, oh, I was falling for her. And she was like, well, she didn't say no, girl that you don't actually know anything about. So he's headed back to the hotel and he's taking the sleigh. Is he taking the sleigh?
The brand new sleigh that Santa gave them.
Oh, that's right. Santa gave him the sleigh.
Santa gave him a sleigh. Because he works at different farmers markets and different little things all over the tiny little town that has a very bustling Christmas community. But they look, oh, this is a really nice sleigh. We could really use this sleigh. Oh, the price tag is too much. And like, well, I'm just tending this shop for a friend of mine. But maybe you'd be more than like to have this snow globe for a much smaller price. And that's when he buys a snow globe. But that's when Santa knows that actually, whatever. So then they say he gives him the new sleigh, and they hook it up to Balthazar, and they go through the mountain. And they get there, and this is after Lindsay Lohan breaks up with Tad, and then after Tad decides that he's going to spend a Christmas with the head glam squad guy, like Tad, who's always seemed maybe on that end of things. And Terry,
both ends of things,
right? But anyway, it's like my incredibly wealthy heiress girlfriend just broke up with me. Hey, stylist guy, would you like to get together with me? And stylist guy is like, yes, I would. And that's the end.
Well, so in about 10 minutes, she's like, Dad, I don't want a meaningless title. I don't want to be VP of Atmosphere. She doesn't want to
be the Intercontinental Champion.
She doesn't want to be the IC champ.
The meaningless title.
Yeah, well done. Very well done. There's a couple of wrestling analogies in here. I think like this. I feel like was a Lindsay Lohan rehab project, and I think it's going to work about as well as Tessa Blanchard's. I would say that Tad is a better version of Grayson Waller. There's a lot of crossover, but she's like, they have this press conference. She's supposed to go away for New Year's with her fiance, and she's like, actually, Tad, no, I know who I am now by not doing the line that we said, but should have said of like, but it took me not remembering who I was to find who I was. It's kind of what we're trying to get at. I'll let the Tad thing go because I feel like it was never about love for him, right? It was about likes for him. Likes over love. So he's not like too heartbroken, but it was very immediate, jarringly so. And then Jake Russell Terrier arrives on his sleigh to the fancy ski lounge, and they like go to talk at a courtyard, and she's like, I broke up with Ted. And he's like, oh good, I think I'm falling in love with you, girl who didn't have a personality, who I put to work at my inn for 2 days. And the dad is like, oh, thank God you got rid of Tad and found this guy instead. That's the end of the movie.
And that's the end of the movie. And that's the end of the review. Get the flick out of here.
Get the flick way out of here. Way out of here.
It's worse than we described.
It's worse than we described, and it's so much. I can't emphasize enough how like part of the charm of the stupidity of your typical and Lifetime and Hallmark movies is like you signed up for that stupidity and you're laughing at them. And I think the actors know that they're just like in a if I could only situation. Like those ones could be really fun. This was not fun. This was just bad. And part of it is like there was nothing likable about Jake to me. Like there was no appeal of the good guy at all.
Yeah.
And Lindsay Lohan, if you're going to do an amnesia thing, I feel like you have to have a really established idea of who someone was beforehand. And she was just an heiress with no personality traits outside of that.
Like, it would have been really cool if she had some kind of artistic and like wants and wanted to do some stuff. And when she was amnesia'd, then she all of a sudden, like, she's drawing absentmindedly with the little kid and draws this amazing sketch of her, like without even realizing what she's doing, because oh my God, I can draw like that, or whatever it is that like that she plays the piano beautifully, or whatever it is that she's always wanted to do, but she can't because she's got to do this other crap. Like that would be something. We don't know anything about her except for now she likes flannel and jeans. That's it. Like
we find out alarmingly little about literally every character in this movie.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah.
There was also, no one was funny. There was like a really pointed part where Jake threw his business proposal in the garbage.
Yes. And
I was like, oh, she's going to find it later. And that's how she's going to piece everything back together. It never comes into play. And I was like,
nope, never.
Oh, there's like such an opportunity. And it was such a vivid shot. Surely they'll circle back. No. No.
Get the flick out of here. Get the flick out of here.
Out of here.
There's the thing. I know next week's movie is going to be worse than this. But I don't know how. I don't know how anything could possibly be worse than this, because it was bland to the point of like touching off my gag reflex. Like it was just like somebody like made macaroni and cheese out of shredded computer paper. Like just there's nothing here. It's empty.
It was an hour and a half or whatever of happened.
And on that note, next week, A Santa with Muscles starring Hulk Hogan. We're gonna say to that one, get the flick out of here. See you next time.
RESPECT. Click the subscribe button and find out what it means to me. Nah, that doesn't have a ring to it. But if you like videos about real news stories that are funny, stupid, or weird, subscribe now.